All right, here we go. This is the Rubin Report. I'm still Dave Rubin, and I have a feeling that YouTube may not be thrilled with this episode, so even more reason to subscribe and click that bell so that you actually get notified when the clips come out. And joining me today is the VP of the Trump Organization and the author of the new book, Triggered, Donald Trump Jr. Welcome to the Rubin Report.
Good to be with you, buddy.
All right, here we go, man. I'm 50-50 on whether this stream is going to be up by the time I finish this very sentence right now. What do you think?
It's sort of a win either way, right? Yeah. If they censor you, we can blow it up and make it go everywhere, and then other people will watch. But it's a shame that we even have to have that conversation, right?
It's sort of ridiculous. We're going to get to that, and that actually has a lot to do with what you write about in the book here about all the tech censorship and all that stuff. But before we do any of that, I don't know if you remember, but a couple days you were on The View, that View program on ABC.
I don't remember that. No one's mentioned that to me since.
Yeah, do you remember that? So there were so many things that happened in that interview that I was like, holy cow, this is everything that I talk about all at once. Yeah. So let's just try to hit a couple things in a row here. So first off, the way the interview started, where Whoopi, who I used to really like Whoopi, I think she used to be a decent liberal and now she's kind of gone off the progressive deep end. She couldn't even say your name in the intro. She literally refused to say your name. What does that feel like when you sit down and you know you're in enemy territory, and then the way they treat you before anything has happened?
Yeah. Well, listen, it obviously shows just how disingenuous the whole thing is, first and foremost, right? I mean, they invite you on to talk about your book. Did you hear a question? Meaning, I did 3 segments. Now, listen, I'm not a baby, right? Like, I'm going to get hit. I get that in that case, there's not even a conservative on my side, given the history, there, Abby Huntsman sort of whatever. There's not a lot of personality there for that kind of stuff. So, I get it. I get that I'm going into the lion's den, but come on, they're going to lecture me about civility, but you have me on for a pretense, the book. You don't ask me a single question about the book, and you refuse to even mention my last name. I was like, this is going wrong real fast, but that's
so
okay.
She basically said the son of the president, and then she kind of choked out DJT.
Don Jr., I think, or Donald Jr., she said. She didn't say, she never said Trump.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's okay, I guess people know, but what does it serve?
Yeah, but it does set a certain tone, and that's been consistent. I mean, Rand Paul was on there a couple weeks ago, 100%. And the way they were treating him. But then a few things happened in a row that I thought were pretty interesting. So you started getting hit, and you apparently had done a little research, because you turned the question around and said to Joy, Joy, you've been in blackface.
Yeah.
And now Joy has been in blackface. She has admitted it on The View. She immediately said she hasn't. Whoopi then said, well, I'm a black woman, and I know what blackface is. Now,
and Whoopi, and you supported Roman Polanski, a child rapist. So
it's not rape. That's what she said.
Yeah, you're right. Sodomy of a 13, 14-year-old girl under Quaaludes. You're right. That's not rape, Whoopi. If that's not rape, I don't know what is. And now you're seeing, by the way, literally the day after, it broke, some other woman accused him of, so is that one rape? I just want to make sure we're clear.
But what do you make of the idea that they never get these things turned on them? That's what was so shocking to me. Nobody does it, even though we all know it.
Correct, and it was funny because I see that. I mean, in the last couple of days, just doing these book signings, even these guys, will come to the book signing. They'll be like, "I love what you did on The View." I'm like, "What were you doing watching The View?" They're like, It was sort of funny turning it around, but. I think what it is, honestly, Dave, so many people are used to going on those shows. They have big viewerships. They have big following. They want to get invited back. They're there to pitch something, and as was I. I mean, I didn't just go on there for fun.
Right.
They're there to pitch something. So they're so desperate about wanting to be invited back that even though it was their 5,000th episode, I don't think anyone's ever pushed back on them.
Yeah.
They can sort of say it's The View, not views.
Right.
There's one view, and if you don't have it, they're going to go after you. And so I guess I just sort of took their script on them, and people were like, well, how much did you prep for that? I was like, I didn't prep for that. I was like, you know what, let me have something in my back pocket. If we can have a civil discourse, it's great. If we can talk about it, and again, understanding
so truly,
that
it was not your intention to flip it on.
No, that's why I sort of held off, but it was like they went at me so hard, I figured, hey, if I'm on for 3 segments, okay, hey, we'll talk a little bit, and then they'll get rough. But just the opening salvo is just aggressive. Even the conservatives sort of come at you. So I was like, okay, game on. I can play. I mean, so I didn't prep, but I went on Google I was like, stupidest things ever said on The View. Whoa. This was not a well-researched, counterattack measure. But it's like it was good to have something in my back pocket that shows a lot of that hypocrisy.
What does that tell you more broadly about the media, though, that they usually know they can sort of say whatever they want? And I don't mean just the View hosts, but basically sort of all the lefty media can say whatever they want. You guys just sort of take the hits usually, and then the media then will cover their tracks after. That's sort of the game that I think a lot of this book is about.
Most people won't even go because most people are afraid of the confrontation on a live screen and stuff like that. They're concerned. Like me, the difference between me and so many people, like I don't care, what the media says. I mean, some of the guys that I spend a lot of time with now in politics and stuff. I mean, they've literally had the reporters call me like. What is it with Don? He just doesn't seem to mind when we attack. I'm like, because I don't. Like, it means absolutely nothing.
Where do you think that? Do you think that's directly from your dad?
I guess it's just. Listen, I've been used to it. I think there's a genetic component. I sort of joke in the book. I say, it took us probably 41 years to realize that we were much more like each other than you would have thought. With my hobbies, the outdoors, like my, sleeping on couches in the Midwest. Like, that's not his thing. He doesn't understand that, and so. I think if anyone would have asked us prior to sort of the viciousness of politics, they would have been like, Don's the one that probably least likely, and it was like now it was like, oh, well, they kind of fight the same way. You back us in a corner, you attack us for 3 years mercilessly, we fight. And, I guess that's the difference. It just doesn't bother me that much. So I don't really care what other people think of me. It's never been something that's fazed me that much. And so I'll get my part out, and whatever they say, they say. I don't freak out if I get a bad press. I get bad press every day. Like, they try to, anything I do and say can be used against me. This is relevant because it's literally today, Veterans Day. In the book, I wrote, there's a chapter about sort of the victory. And I say, after 2 years of sort of that just fighting during the campaign, when we won on election night, like I was not at all like excited about it. It wasn't like, we won a hockey game and it's like, yes, 2 hours of,
you're more like,
it was so vicious. So the ups and downs, the ebbs and flows, they're so intense. It wears you down, it beats you down. So when we won and they're like, we got it, I'm pacing around like a caged animal, be like, no. They're gonna do something. They're going to take what Hillary said Trump supporters were going to do. They're going to do exactly that. It turned out I was right? Meaning they were going to try to contest. They were going to, protest in the streets. That's what she's saying Trump supporters are going to do.
Right. They're not going to accept the results.
100%. Yeah. So I was there like, no. Like, I figured this game out now. They're going to do something. So when John Podesta got on stage and was like, well, I was like, I was happier about that, even though it meant we were still fighting and it wasn't over, and than I was that we had won, which is a pretty warped reality. But again, after 2 years
what was that night like, though? Because Hillary didn't concede that night.
Well, she did. She did later on that night. But this sort of didn't. Yeah, it was sort of a wishy-washy concession, and then it was like, let's see if we can pull some recounts. Turns out we actually got more votes in the recounts. But so I wasn't at all psyched. It didn't hit me yet. What we had won and accomplished. So I write a chapter in the book saying when it hit me was literally like 2.5 months later, and it was rolling into Arlington. For the wreath laying ceremony. And I was like, I'm not an overly emotional kind of guy. Like I said, I can kind of compartmentalize the hate and just move on. But like, dude, it hit me pretty hard. And we're rolling into Arlington and you see the gravity of the responsibility that is, what my father has to do right now. Like, and I was so happy then it all hit me then because he's the guy in charge. I know he's going to be such a good leader. I know he's going to get out of these endless wars. And you're seeing it. And like some guy on like left wing like tries to take like some of it. He compared his sacrifices. I said they made everything, all the BS that we've been going through, 100% worth it because he's the leader now that we need. And they tried to make it seem as though like I was obviously saying that my sacrifices as a business, as a person, over a campaign was the same as the death of Americans. Like I was like, honestly, I can't even engage because they'll try to build. But like no reasonable person outside of like left wing and like Vanity Fair and these like loser pubs that will try to take like anything you say and dunk on you. Like no reasonable human being of the thousands that have reached out to me that love the book, not one has even thought that what they're saying I must have meant was what I meant. I don't think any reasonable person was. But that's what they will do, and that's the sickness that is really out there in the media.
In a weird way, though, do you guys kind of need that now? Like, it's, you know what I mean? Like, it's sort of become this self-fulfilling prophecy. It's like the media is awful. Everyone watching this knows that. They keep doubling down on lies and racist and homophobe and all that nonsense.
All those things.
And we'll get to all that.
I wasn't talking with you before we ever got into politics, right?
Well, okay, so let's just do that real quick. I was going to save it till later, but about 8 years ago, you did my SiriusXM show. It was on the OutQ gay channel. I didn't want to be on the gay channel, but they were like, "You're gay. We're putting
you got to start somewhere, Dave. Congratulations."
Yeah, okay, so I guess I did start somewhere, but it was separate but equal. You know what I mean? You have an equal radio channel, but it's the gay channel. But anyway, I got in touch with you. You came on the show, and at this time, again, 8 years ago, you were for gay marriage. Your dad was not. This is way before he was running for president or anything. And I asked you about that, and I'm not going to. You can repeat what you said, basically. If you want.
I'm a living. I probably said something to the effect of, you know what? Happy people are productive people. It doesn't bother me at all.
No.
You know. And by the way, I'm the same way. Frankly, with the trans thing, I spent a chapter on that. But where I draw the line is when it's like, okay, well now, Dave, you can be a woman now and go compete against women. You know, you have that MMA fighter, something, you know, Fox. It was a man MMA fighter, a male. Okay, transition to female, gets in like the first fight as a female, like breaks the orbital, you know, socket, you know, of a female opponent's skull. I'm like, I mean, you're a great champion. Like, come on, man, stop it. Like, they're breaking every women's world, you know, weightlifting record, every bike. So I finally sort of been like, man, I can be as live and let live as you want, but like, there's a line that we got to draw. And I sort of feel like today, if you're woke here, like by tomorrow you're alt-right. It's a never-ending, you know, goalpost. Like I can't keep up. I try to see like what they're. I want to see the other side. I want to hear the opinion at least and like make up my own mind. But like now it's like, okay, I can buy into this. It's like, well, now that you bought into this, it's all over. I mean, they did it. The example I use in the book is I talk about, you know, Martina Navratilova, great, you know, LGBT activist for 40 years. Like before it was cool, right? Like. She came out, one of the great female athletes of all time. We knew her growing up. You know, she had a similar story to my mother escaping Czechoslovakia and all that stuff. And I was like, she said basically what I was saying. And the left destroyed her. So she could have, the LGBT crowd that she was an activist for, that she was one of the original leaders of, like destroys her as though 40 years of being the greatest supporter in the world for them meant nothing. And they own, you know, so, you know, she has to walk it back. She's owned, she's disgraced. You know, 3 weeks later, she has to obviously come out against Trump for like something just because that's the penance you pay to get back into like the woke zone. And I was like, that's weird. Like, she never had anything to say about it before. She grew up with us, obviously, you know, but that's how insane it's gotten. And so, again, you know, everyone's like, oh, you're so, I'm like, I'm pretty live and let live, man. Like, but like, we have to be able to delineate it. And I say it on Twitter and stuff. And what's funny is if I put up anything on Twitter, the hate like flows. I mean, honestly, before anyone could even read the tweet and respond, like 40 tweets, like you're just insane. But even then, I see these guys like, oh man, they're saying it like, I can't believe it. I'm actually agreeing with Donald Trump Jr. on something like, they're taking it so far. They're even losing themselves.
Yeah, it's so interesting because what you're basically saying is that the progressives of tomorrow will hate the progressives of today. That's exactly how it works.
Correct. I mean, you know, I say, you know, and they like to make fun of it, but I think it's kind of true. Like John F. Kennedy, the leader of that party for so long, he'd be alt-right today, right? But according to their rules and their standards, you know, and that's what it is. I mean, we're not up against, you know, the Democrat Party anymore. They've been taken over by the left. And so when I go around to the Rust Belt and I talk to these people, I always say, like, this is not your grandfather's Democrat Party. They're like, you know, because I see them, oh, Don, you know, we're voting for your dad, but if my grandfather knew I was voting for a Republican, you know, he'd be rolling over in his grave. I go, what would your grandfather say about today's Democrat Party platform? And they're like,
yeah, you get that answer pretty quick.
Like, the light bulb goes off, and that's when they get it. Like, the party, you know, that was for working class Americans, that no longer exists. Now they're for the, you know, the ultimate fringe. I mean, the example I think I sort of, you know, Elizabeth Warren the other day, you know, black, trans, you know, I don't even know, honestly, I don't even know what all the, you know,
Latinx,
whatever.
They're the backbone of society.
They are. You know, they are 1/1024th of the backbone of society, like her, you know, Native American status. You know, it's. I'm not saying they're not part of it.
Of course.
But they are not the. How about, you know, our military veterans? You know, how about teachers? How about everyone that's part of productive society? Like, that's the backbone. The backbone is everyone together, not like the most, like, how far can we take it? And then, okay, that's America. I was like, everyone's America. That's the whole point of this great experiment. Like, and to go into these identity politics where we're catering to the 0.00002% of the population, be like, no, that's you. That America, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, and it's a constant movement of destruction, because to lift somebody, you always have to take somebody out.
So
it creates a competing interest.
One day I'm going to have to do a podcast and ask you, because I mean, as a gay man, what are your thoughts as it relates to sort of, again, outspoken, activist, homosexual people getting owned by the trans movement, and like it's not enough after the years that you guys fought to get the equality that you have,
Don, as I told you,
that people probably pretend doesn't exist.
As I told you 8 years ago, all I ever wanted was exact equality under the law. That's what we've got. You can call, now we're equal. You can call me whatever you want. You know what I mean? Like you could call me a fag right now. It wouldn't mean anything to me.
The further that you go, they actually don't want equality. They want more than equality. Everyone needs some sort of form of reparations. Oftentimes for, at least as it relates to that, for problems that probably no one had ever even heard of or even knew existed. So it wasn't like they were oppressed like some communities actually were for so long. It's like, I didn't know what trans was until a few years ago, probably, right?
Well, that's the thing. They were going to whatever bathroom they wanted to, and it was fine. Nobody
one
was.
cares.
And your dad even said, what was it, like 2 years ago, your dad said the thing about if a trans person comes into Trump Tower, they'll use whatever bathroom.
Hey, listen, I'm a builder. I would love to build one universal bathroom, okay? We're real estate people. Like, if I don't have to build dual bathrooms, I could actually save a lot of money. I wish everyone would share a bathroom. I think it'd be wonderful.
Yeah. All right, so let's shift for just a second, and then we're going to get back to a lot of this stuff. But the leaker.
Yes.
Now, right now, I know that we're doing this on YouTube. This is a live stream. If we name the leaker, even though the name is out there,
you're out.
They are most likely going to shut this stream. They might shut this stream anyway, just because we're now talking about it. But the leaker, it's been named in a zillion things, on a zillion outlets. It's already been on television. Facebook has said they're taking down content with the leaker's name. YouTube's been taking down live streams. They did a big one last night that they took down. So I'm just going to read you the statement on this, and then we'll talk about it the best way we kind of can here, right? So a YouTube spokesperson said videos mentioning the potential whistleblower's name would also be removed. The spokesperson said that the company would use a combination of machine learning and human review to scrub the content. I'm pretty sure we're getting both of those right now. The removals, the spokesperson added, would affect the titles and descriptions of videos as well as the video's actual content. So look, I don't want this video to be taken down, but they're obviously watching it right now. The name is out there. There's a picture of this person on the White House lawn the day your dad showed up at the White House after the election.
It's interesting. I've gotten to be a part of the outrage cycle. It's a very fast cycle.
Yeah.
What was outrage? I guess we've been on here for about 10 minutes. I'm sure that the cycle of outrage has changed and has adapted to something else since we've been on. But I was part of the outrage cycle, I guess, last week because I apparently outed the whistleblower.
Even though it was all over the internet.
I retweeted an article that literally had his name in the title of the article. Yeah. It was on the Drudge Report. The View was like, the Drudge, who knows about the Drudge Report? I go, I don't know, it's like the largest news aggregator anywhere in the world, probably, right? I mean, it was on the Drudge Report 4 days prior to that. It was in Real Clear Politics. So I put it out there. Donald Trump Jr. out. I'm like, out. I still don't know his last name because I was just retweeting the article. I could care less. But I realized pretty quickly, it wasn't so much, Dave, that they were outraged that I had outed him. It's that now that if the name is known, people can actually do some research, right?
So that's what I wanted to get to, yeah.
He's a humble public servant who's just trying to do what's right for the guy. No, he's a CIA guy who was Biden's guest at a state dinner, who was good friends with Brennan, apparently, who was in the photograph, as you mentioned, the day my father is president-elect and going to the White House, crying like a little child, in that group picture where everyone's so morose and they're all, wearing black and, they're in mourning because it's the end of their world as we know it with Susan Rice or whoever else was in the picture. Like, they're like, yeah, that guy, he's going to be super objective. He's just a humble, this didn't start. His lawyer doing tweets in January of 2017, right after the inauguration, the coup has started, impeachment is next. right along with the stuff that looks awfully like really weird child stuff.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
There's nothing wrong with these people. That's the point. They weren't upset that his name was out there. They're upset that it's another Mueller. That I get into so much in the book. It's the Mueller investigation. When he's an innocent public servant, he's beyond reproach. He's just a nice guy. When he's a CIA guy with ties to Biden, when he's in the photo crying, you see that this is not an objective, unbiased person. This is the swamp at its finest. This is a deep state guy that wants to help out his people, and they will do whatever they can to attack Trump because Trump is going in and breaking up their cabal, their system that they've built up for so long, that they know and love, that has made all their friends really rich. And that's a problem for them.
So let me ask you a question. As a guy that punches back, do you think I'm basically sort of half-stepping this here by not saying his name? I mean, I'm tempted to say his name, not because I'm not, I
don't know that it matters because anyone can go on right now and just type it in and figure it out for themselves. So I would rather, frankly, keep the platform. But again, the whole point of
you don't want me to ruin my entire career this second just to,
let's not. Yeah. Let's give them a little bit more.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's so much a part of the book, which is that social media censorship is like they have decided, like the mainstream media, to be the marketing arm of the Democrat Party, of those leftist policies.
How do you think they coordinate it? So like something like this, where it's everything that you just said is correct. The picture is there, like obviously all the connections, and no one wants anything bad to happen to this guy, but the reason
they pretend, hey, listen, I wish they would have shown the same, you're endangering his life, I'm endangering the life of a CIA. I wish I would have seen 1%, just 1%, I don't need it all, of the same amount of outrage when, my wife opened up an exploding white powder envelope of people that was a Warren volunteer. None of that stuff comes out. Like, that's at my house. My kids, that doesn't deserve outrage. But this guy that's working in the deep state, he's a CIA guy, he needs our protections. Like, give me a break. Like, come on. I'm not advocating for violence of anyone, but at least balance this thing out in terms of that. And so it's sort of, that outrage cycle just shows exactly what we're up against.
Do you think your dad always saw that thing, like that sort of protection racket between the Democrats and the media?
Yeah.
It seems like he always kind of, because as a media
guy...
no
one knew how to play the media better than him, when he was in his career. And, I talk about it in the book, when we went down to launch the campaign, and it was, June 16th, 2015. I mean, the last thing he said to us before he walked over to go to the elevator and we went down to go watch was, just look this, now we find out who our real friends are. And so he knows, he understands the real world. He understands how it works. He understands how full of crap most people really are. You know what I mean? Like, everyone's looking for an angle. And honestly, politics is no different. If anything, it's probably worse in that effect, meaning you're great and you're useful until you're not. And the thing that is missing so much is loyalty, and you see it. And so he's always known, and we've always known, that the media has been left-leaning. It's just now that they've given up the pretense of even objectivity. I mean, you see that. The Washington Post, the day after the inauguration, 19 minutes after the inauguration, 19 minutes, wrote the first article, "The Case for Impeachment." I mean, 19 minutes.
19 minutes.
That's about the amount of time that Obama took to get nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize, right? That was 11 days, I believe. But that's the difference, right? So when people ask, what about the impeachment that started last week? I go, it didn't start last week. It started on November 9th, 2016. Okay, the day they knew he had won. That's when this thing started. And again, if you weren't a believer in the deep state prior to his election, I get it. If you aren't now, you're a freaking idiot.
Can you describe so people say deep state and then, suddenly Twitter's going to explode in conspiracy theories. Yeah. You basically mean sort of the layer that always exists because that's kind of what has kept the machine going regardless of administration.
Essentially manipulating the people's choice. I mean, Donald Trump was elected by the people of this country. This is the unelected, self-appointed leaders of this country. If they disagree with the president who was elected to do, the things that he campaigned on, well, we're just going to do that because we know better. And it's that class, it's that elite. And honestly, that's always existed. But I think, now that class has not only just existed, but they've become nefarious. They are doing whatever they can to not only just, do their little thing, but subvert the actual will of the people, and that's where it starts getting scary.
Do you think your dad was the only guy that could break this? Because there's a lot of metaphors for this. So there's a lot of
100%.
analogies. Some people say he was the icebreaker that was going to break it. So I would say always saying that it was just the chessboard. He was the guy that was just like, you're all playing this fake game. We're going to toss it up, see what happens.
It's probably a combination of the both. I mean, I think the reality is, if you look at sort of some of the major examples of his presidency, I mean, take Kavanaugh. All right. How long do you think, let's say, a Jeb Bush character, under fire, unfounded, ridiculous allegations about gang rape magically appear,
Yeah.
How long do you think Jeb would have lasted when the media took the sound bites that they wanted and were like, this definitely happened, 100%, we're never going to question it? Second, maybe two.
Yeah.
That's where I'd set the over-under before he folded. It would have ruined this
guy's life. It wouldn't have made those 19 minutes.
It wouldn't have made it 19 minutes. And so, Donald Trump just isn't going to, buy into the nonsense. He isn't just going to cave to that kind of pressure. And that's exactly what we need today, because we need to really reset, this whole thing. And so he is the perfect vessel for this. And so that's why when people are like, well, it's a pretty aggressive, I'm like, you've been under attack for 3 years. I mean, I see a lot of moderate, Democrats be like, honestly, I'm a Democrat, but I wish they just let him do his job. I mean, he's accomplished things that prior president, Obama, had he gotten the job numbers where they are, had he done the things for the African American community, prison reform, opportunity zones, they would have knighted him, emperor for life.
He's doing this racist thing wrong. Huh?
I mean, he's the worst racist ever, because he's failing miserably at it. I mean, if you're going to fail at something, it's great to fail at being racist, right?
Yeah.
But it's such nonsense, and I see that because I see it from the characters. I mean, Whoopi Goldberg, we used that example. She can't say his name. Well, it didn't stop her from showing up at one of the finales of The Apprentice and hanging out with us at an after party 5-6 years ago, whenever that was. She was there. She didn't have a problem with us then. That was another thing I could have brought up. The whole. I mean, there's just so many examples of this. It didn't stop Al Sharpton from saying all these complimentary things. Reverend Jesse Jackson for saying, "Hey, he gave us space on a Wall Street building when we weren't, when we weren't anything." I go, I have pictures with half of the resistance, at dinner.
Right. So that's what your dad meant by that we're going to find out who our friends are. Because he basically had connections with everybody in that world.
He knew he had done so much, and that's the reality. I mean, when Al Sharpton needed a place to stay in New York, this is one of the stories in the book. He literally called me to set him up with a broker to help get him a place. There wasn't this hatred. So he'll joke, "Oh, well, we're frenemies," and it's all an act. They got to play their role. I get it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's all sort of an act. I mean, we see each other at a cigar club that I go to occasionally, and we'll sit there and joke around. I know he's not on my side politically, but that we are somehow have been oppressing them for it's nonsense.
So,
we had good relations. He'd been up in my father's office dozens of times throughout his career.
Is part of that if you were to look at your resume, your lifestyle, you're the son of a billionaire, you grew up in New York, you're sort of supposed to be a Democrat in a certain
100%. I mean, I always say, I'm an unlikely Republican, right? I grew up in New York City. I have a billionaire father. I went to an Ivy League school, all these things. And, the big part I talk about that is sort of the lessons I've seen throughout life. I mean, I learned about sort of that socialist movement, especially as I see the Democrat Party going really towards, welcoming, sort of socialism, communist ideals. It's no longer a fringe element of the party. It's literally hey, the leading people are hey, we're vacationing in the Soviet Union. This is wonderful.
If only someone had been talking about this for the last 3 years.
No, exactly. And, well, I mean, that was one of the big reasons to write the book, which is I hate watching these people that talk about the great ideals of, socialism. I'm who have never actually lived under it. And again, I reckon I got to caveat everything. I'm the son of a rich guy from New York. I get it. But my mother escaped communist Czechoslovakia. I had a grandfather, a grandmother, that lived under all of that nonsense. And I had the good fortune of them recognizing the blessings that we have here in this country. And so, they, from a young age, I spoke Czech fluently. And my grandfather would be like, "Hey, he's got to see the other side. You have it really good here." Just to never take anything for granted, just to never have that. So he would take me over there, starting at the age of 5, for 4 to 6 weeks every summer.
Wow.
I had friends over there. I've waited in those bread lines, Dave. I can assure you, there's nothing less glamorous, than an empty supermarket. This wasn't a helicopter generation. I may have been 5 or 6. You're going to the corner store and, waiting for bread.
Wow.
I've done that. I saw as a kid, I'd be like, why is my grandmother not in my parents' wedding picture? It was my grandfather Well, they let him out of the country to walk his daughter down the aisle, but they wouldn't let the wife for fear that they would defect. Like, what kind of system doesn't let people leave because they know they ain't coming back? So I've experienced these things, and to see them pushed as mainstream thought now, it's really scary. Like, I remember that my first memory of fear that I talk about in the book was going over there the first time. I was wearing, it was pretty cool because it was the 80s. I was wearing like a blue jean jacket with like the stars and stripes on it because I was like, it's kind of 80s. Like,
yeah, Rocky IV.
And like, I got pulled out of the line by, a customs guy in a military thing with an AK over his shoulder, and like he started questioning me, like, was I there to like preach, the evil, the great aspects of capitalism? I'm like, dude, I'm 5 years old.
Yeah.
Like, and not like one of like today's 5-year-olds who are much more woke. They're asking about nuclear proliferation. You see this on Twitter all the time. My 2.5-year-old asked me about the dangers of nuclear proliferation on the Korean Peninsula and its effect on macroeconomic form. No, I was
it's
five.
Incredible. It always happens to those blue check.
Yeah, it's always the blue check mark kids who they're really woke, and I'm like, it's amazing how it just fits into the byline of today. And,
wait, none of your kids have asked you about string theory and how?
No, they haven't. They haven't.
Bizarre.
Hard to believe. I guess they're just not that smart.
Yeah.
It's a shame. I was really hoping that they would be.
You got to get them to a more elite school. That's the problem.
I know. It's a shame. So I've seen that stuff. I've lived. My 93-year-old grandmother is still alive, and I always say, like, I'll get the call, from her, in tears. Now, this is not your typical sort of 93-year-old grandmother. I mean, this is someone who, grew up in Czechoslovakia, spent 2 years like hiding in the basement of her farmhouse from the Nazis. The real fascists, not the nonsense that we see today. That it's okay. They can be fascist and they can beat the hell out of people who are right-wing, conservative people. That's not a problem. There's a tacit acceptance of that in today's media, but God forbid you put up a meme about someone attacking the media. I mean, that's outrage. That's front page news.
Brian Stelter is going to spin
a
in his
billboard
chair.
of someone choking Donald Trump in Times Square, that's no problem. But if you put a cartoon CNN like Tom and Jerry thing, oh my God!
Didn't your dad almost choke the dog in that picture? It looked like the dog was going to be choked.
Well, the fact that the New York Times literally called the White House to fact check a meme just goes to show you how deranged they are. But like,
so you don't have a dog medal because the medal even had a paw.
I mean, that was good. This wasn't exactly the Medal of Honor, but the fact that they're fact checking it shows you the derangement, the filter, by which other people are seeing their news. But I get that call from my grandmother because she's got CNN over there. They don't have a conservative outlet or even a moderate outlet, and I mean, she's in tears. You can't let that happen there. It always sounds so good. On paper, it's always so great. Everything's free. Everything's wonderful. It's not done. Like, I was like, no, I remember. I've been there. But this is a woman who's been through a lot, who's calling me in tears for fear of her grandchildren and her great-grandchildren and the life that she knows they could live in this country. That her daughter got to live that American dream. She's worried about that just going by the wayside. And I'm like, no, I get it. Like, I'm pushing back. I promise you. But that it can take a woman like that who's been through it all, who's seen it, who's lived it, and drive her to tears goes to show you. And I say, listen, you've watched the debates. I mean, you can find a Democrat that will say anything. I mean, there's some really loony shit that that they'll run with.
Biden wants to send men to women's prisons if they want to go to
if they want to do it.
It
Seems totally reasonable. Elizabeth Warren thinks a $52 trillion bill, which is 90% of U.S. government, is like a wonderful plan while eliminating private insurance. AOC thinks that $93 trillion for the Green New Deal to prevent cows from farting and eliminate air travel, that's going to magically pay for itself. And it's also going to fund people who are just not willing to work, even if they're able to work, and that they don't find a problem with that distinction is, this is not normal
Well, they said that
shit.
part was a mistake.
Sure, it was a mistake, except it was in the plan, right? Except it was in the plan that they originally put it.
Right.
And the whole thing's a mistake, but, minor details. And that's what it is. I mean, it's absolutely nuts. So when I see that, it's like, we got to combat this stuff.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about the way your dad has sort of evolved over the years, because your pinned tweet is him on Oprah. What is it, like 1986
It's like 86,
or something?
literally talking. I mean, he is the most consistent politician in probably American history.
So it's pretty incredible. So he's talking about our bad trade deals. Now, this is roughly 33 years. He's talking about our bad trade deals. But what struck me about it isn't just that the things he was talking about then are the things that are still relevant now, but there's clearly a change in his demeanor now, right? He's much more gruff now. He's more, And what do you think that's just 33 years of trying to get through the system, and that he because he comes off as very soft, actually.
Yeah, no,
it's hard for people to understand.
I think it's a combination of it. It's probably not trying to get through the system. It's more like, talking about it a lot, hoping someone's going to do something, hoping someone else will do something. You can throw sidelines for so long, but what's great about Trump is like, hey, he's a man. He's going to step up and get in the game. He's like, I can't just talk smack from the sidelines. I actually have to get in the game now. And that's what it was. I mean, you saw it in '86. And he was right then, and he's right now. He's sick of politicians that you and I wouldn't let negotiate a car lease. No, but the reality is this, half of our political, they're making trillion-dollar decisions, Dave. In some cases, $93 trillion decisions, or trying to, that our kids are going to be beholden to, our grandkids are going to be beholden to. These are people who've done nothing in their lives other than they've never signed the front of a paycheck. They've never had someone's livelihood, their family's well-being dependent on their success.
I'm running a bigger payroll here in my house
than 90% of the politicians out there. And so, you have John Kerry, negotiating against Iran. Like, what has John Kerry negotiated in his life? Nothing.
Do you think there's any risk in having a more business sense to the government, or do you think that that's like
I think there's, hey, just look at the proof. I think there was incredible risk in not having any of it for the last 50 years. Look at what it's gotten us. So now you see it every day. My father will talk about these things like, well, they're building the new Air Force One. So he calls Boeing and be like, how are you building a plane, 2 planes for this much? Take $1 billion off. Okay. He's like, what? He's like, wait, what? Like, well, why didn't you? Well, no one had ever asked us before. Yeah, we can do that. We want to keep good. Like, no one had even thought about trying to save money. He talks about it with some other things that he's done with the aircraft carriers and the systems. It's like, well, we upgraded the system, but it's not really better. It costs a lot more. It's harder to maintain. And if something goes wrong when we're in the middle of the South China Sea, we got to bring in 15 engineers from MIT to try to fix the catapult. So no one's even thought to ask these questions. For him, it was a 5-minute phone call to save $1 billion. Like, that alone is more than pretty much all of these politicians have done in their entire careers, because no one's even bothered to ask the question. They just, well, here's the price. Oh, great, that's the price. Like, why would we question that? Like,
well, isn't that the part of government? Like, you have to spend the money one year because otherwise they're just going to cut you the next
budgets.
year.
It's like,
but that's why the deficit keeps going up.
It keeps going up because everyone wants more power. More power is in having more money. More power is in having a higher budget. And so you fix things that don't need fixing. You create problems that don't exist to justify an existence that is asinine. It's why government keeps growing at the level that it is, and it's centralized around D.C., usually far away from the things that they're supposed to be managing and running, with people that have no idea what's actually going on. So, I think, Trump is the result of Americans being fed up and actually seeing that. I mean, Americans, despite the media's portrayal of them, they get it. They're so much more onto this system than anyone, and it's why you have Trump. They're sick of just being looked over, forgotten. I mean, America's #1 export, as far as I'm concerned, for the last 50 years has been the American dream. Mm-hmm. Okay, we have sent that dream to countries that hate our guts, they hate our values, they hate our freedoms, they hate everything about us. That's been our big export. Because of stupid practices by guys that have no idea what they're doing, up against people that are literally experts in their fields, that have got PhDs in this stuff, and they're laughing their ass off. For years, that America's just given it up. We're giving up, 200 years of hegemony that we've had to appease, people that hate our guts. And, Trump's, the counter response to that. It's why you see China's trade bill. Oh yeah, we really want to negotiate against Trump, and the media. Oh, they really love negotiating. Guys, maybe they're just saying that because they know you'll bite hook, line, and sinker. Because, in all fairness, who else has even questioned the nonsense that they've been doing? They hate Trump because Trump's finally pushed back after decades of them sucking us dry, sucking our jobs out, sucking our money, destroying our middle class. Now someone's pushing back.
Is that the crazy part, that we're so trained not to think about how the system actually works over time, that then when someone comes in and says things, so like NATO, for example, when your dad was like, well, some of these countries are going to have to pay their fair share,
oh my God, he's destroying NATO. The president of NATO is actually come up and be like, hey, listen, this was no fan of Trump. Well, NATO has raised an extra, what was it, like $100 billion. Because Trump, if you say you're going to take 2%, 3%, 4% of your GDP and put it towards defending yourselves, do it. Do it. It's not rocket science. I mean, this was a pact before Trump, but no one bothered to say, hey, guys, come on, you owe this money. They just said, okay. I mean, watching Germany.
What do you think our leaders were actually doing?
Nothing. They don't care. It's not their money. It's other people's money. It doesn't matter. It's no different than Air Force One. Why would we ask to negotiate? Who cares? You know what? I'd love to get on the board of Boeing later on, so we're not going to question them. We're not going to ask them to do better. Maybe they'll give me a really lucrative position when I'm out of government. I watched last year the outrage that the media had. Germany's really upset that Trump is telling them they got to pay, or we're not going to defend them. I mean, they are literally upset that Trump is saying, pay up your fair share. They're meanwhile complaining that we're not going to defend them against Russians while they're giving them billions of dollars a year coming for Russian oil. So you want us to defend you against Russia while you're giving them more money than God, in a pipeline, natural gas deal. You could be taking that from us too, guys. Like, the hypocrisy of the thing is, and I see, Jeremy outraged, about. It's nonsense. So, Trump's calling all of these people. He's calling all of their bluffs, and no one has in decades.
So, with the calling of the bluffs, so that sort of brings us back to the Ukraine situation, because it seems to me, call me crazy, stop me if you think I'm nuts here, but it seems to me that if Donald Trump Jr. was getting about 85 grand a month to work for a company in a foreign land who he didn't have any expertise in doing what they do.
In a language I didn't speak. In a business I know nothing about.
I think you see where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
I mean, what's going on?
Well, that's the hypocrisy. And the media does.
We're talking about Hunter Biden, obviously.
Of course.
Yeah.
The media loves to do this. They go, oh, Donald Trump Jr. attacked Hunter Biden. I go, yeah. Well, Donald Trump Jr., he's so not self-aware. I was like, no, I get it. I'm the son of a rich guy. I've gotten a big part where I said it on Hannity a couple times, and then I didn't, give the 3-minute disclaimer the second time I was on. So they're like, oh, he doesn't get that he's also benefited. I go, no. I've benefited from my father's last name. I share his name. I get that. I'm not pretending that hasn't happened.
But also, aren't you proud of that? I mean,
100%.
We have this fear of success here.
Well, but Dave, the difference between me and Hunter Biden is I did that through the business that he built up as a capitalist. If he wanted to give me $1 billion, I could put it on a pile of floor, light it on fire, and that's our prerogative. I mean, that's sort of, the difference is I didn't do it through my daddy's taxpayer-funded office. Right? Magically become an international businessman. When we won, before he even took the presidency, we said we are not going to do new foreign deals. And we had deals that buildings we're building and then we can't just pull out. We have a contractual obligation. We said we will not. That was a big part of my business. That's why I'm so involved in politics, because that's what I did. I have a lot more free time now. So it's like, hey, I'll get involved in this and fight for what I believe in. That's why I wrote a book. But the false equivalency of being like, well, how are you different than Hunter Biden? How am I different? Like, I was an international businessman for the last 15 years, okay? We stopped doing those deals just so they could have no, impropriety story. Hunter Biden magically becomes an international businessman, gets on a board of an energy company. He knows nothing about energy, had no track record, and is making $83,000 a month in the Ukraine where his father's in charge. No, that's off limits. I wasn't off limits for 2.5 years. Kids are off limits. Barron Trump's not off limits. They hit him. Yeah. Tiffany Trump, who's in law school, did nothing. Just a nice kid, going to school. She's not off limits. I wasn't off limits when they spent 2.5 years trying to throw me in jail for treason for taking a 20-minute unsolicited meeting. Hunter Biden's off limits for a shady board seat in a corrupt company. He's off limits when he takes $1.5 billion from the Chinese government, not like a Chinese investor, from the Chinese government after traveling there on Air Force Two with his father. Well, what would the media do if Donald Trump Jr. did that?
But they said they didn't talk about it.
Obviously,
nor at the golf.
Obviously, they didn't mention the business. They knew nothing about it when they're playing golf together. I just say, do the other thing. How about this? Let's go earlier in life. Hunter Biden gets, a great job at MBNA right out of school. Happens to be the largest bank and the largest employer in the state of Delaware, where Joe is the senator signing favorable tax legislation. He's a brilliant guy. He's a brilliant guy, so he manages to rise through the ranks there faster than anyone. Obviously, totally a coincidence. He then gets a board seat on Amtrak at 27. Huge. He's a lover of trains. He's a lover of trains, obviously.
Clearly.
Dave. I mean, that's why he got it. Nothing to do with daddy controlling the purse strings. No, that's off limits. I haven't talked much about it because honestly, it's not even worth it. But you get frustrated enough because they have to attack my personal life, everything about it. What would happen if Donald Trump Jr. got thrown out of the Navy Reserve in 2 weeks? for doing a little of the yayo.
Yeah.
Testing positive for cocaine. You think they'd have a problem? You think they'd give me the pass? People don't even hear about that. Turning in a rental car with a crack pipe and all of these things, and the media would have a field day. So much so, I almost should go do it, because when they catch it,
you got a real death wish, man.
The aneurysm that they would have, no, it would be good for us because it would solve the fake news media problem. Their heads would explode with outrage, that there'd be none left and we could get back to a reasonable discourse. So they try to do this false equivalency of what's the difference. I go, that's the difference. Hunter Biden made millions of dollars through his father's taxpayer-funded office, has all this other shade in the past, and he's totally off limits. But you had no problem with half of Congress saying that I literally committed treason, a crime punishable by death, for taking a 20-minute unsolicited meeting. But Hillary Clinton can go out, pay foreign agents to go collect dirt, take that dirt through the DNC, leak it to the FBI. The FBI then leaks it back to the press. The press writes their outrage story, which the FBI then uses as the basis of an investigation of individuals on a campaign for the president of the United States, which started the whole Mueller hoax. I mean, where's the outrage? By the way, not even the outrage. Where's the story?
Right. Just
you have a couple of guys, Sarah Carter, Sean Hannity, Greg Jarrett, a couple of guys pointing out, but where's you'd think that this would be big news. I mean, if you're a journalist, this is kind of a big deal. I mean, this is a legitimate coup, and they're just no, hey, well, nothing to see here. Well, hey, there's nothing going on here, guys. We're just going to pretend this never happened, because it goes against what they would like to happen. It goes against the DNC talkers. It goes against that media narrative. And since they've made that cognizant decision to be the marketing wing of the DNC, we should actually look into them, for campaign finance violations, because they're just literally contributing millions and billions of free marketing to the DNC, covering for their bullshit.
So who in the course of all of this, I hear you on all this, who in the course of all this do you, and I guess by extension your dad, actually take counsel from? So I remember during the Michael Cohen testimony, it was one of the first moments when I was like, this Russia thing is complete nonsense. But the reason wasn't because of anything he said. It was because you were live tweeting it. And I was like, if this guy is guilty, meaning you, if you were guilty of anything, your lawyers or everyone you know would be locking you up and putting you in a room and taking your phone.
It's in here.
Yeah, because you were live tweeting it so freely.
My lawyers, it was funny. My lawyers, he's like, you can't do that. Anything you say, there will be. I was like, I don't care. I'm right. I don't care. This is bullshit, and I'm going to say it. I literally had that conversation, that sit down with my lawyers numerous times. I go, you guys are making one critical mistake. If I sit down, if I just sit in the corner and curl up in a ball and die, or cry sucking my thumb in the fetal position, that's what they want. You think they're going to go any lighter on me? They're not. Adam Schiff was on TV every day saying I committed treason. He's seen evidence to the entire country. He's seen evidence of treason and collusion and all. I still haven't seen it. You think if he's seen it and no one else has, you think, hey, maybe it's time to drop it by now. It wasn't in the Mueller report. But, so I'm saying, I'm just not going to do it, man. I'm not going to just sit back. I get where you're going from a legal strategy. I'm not naive to that. It's not that I'm
not saying it was the right thing to do. I'm just saying.
I'm not, I get where they're saying. I go, I just don't care. And honestly, at the end of it, they go, you know what, you were right. You needed to push back, because you could see it. When I'm in closed-door testimony with the House Intelligence Committee, right? And I come back, I'm out of this thing after 9 hours or so of testimony. I get out at 7 o'clock at night, and I look at Twitter and CNN. At 11:59, Donald Trump Jr. was saying this. I go, Jesus Christ. Adam Schiff is taking bathroom breaks and leaking this stuff to CNN.
Closed door?
Closed door. It was supposed to be totally.
Yeah.
And I go back, I'm looking back 7 hours in advance. Every time we took a bathroom break, CNN is breaking this stuff. 3 of their big bombshells had to do with me. Now, they were all wrong. They were all false. One of them was the WikiLeaks. Some random dude, literally DM'd me or sent me an email. Have you seen this? It was whatever, let's call it June 14th, right? Now, they leaked the stuff to CNN, and I'm looking at the dates. Do you have comments on that? It was June 4th. I was like, holy shit. They deleted the 1 in 14, right? So the 14, you delete the 1, it becomes 4. So the thing broke on June 10th or whatever it was, right? So it looks like I had this information from some random, it's a Trump donor. He donated $25 and somehow spammed our email. So actually hit my email. So it got there. I didn't respond. But it looked like that based on the leaked email. I had it 6 days before rather than 4 days after the rest of the freaking world. No different than sort of, me outing the whistleblower after it's been out there in the public for 4 days. I'm just like, oh my God. Now, bombshell, Donald Trump Jr. had it. I'm like, here's the tweets. Here's the emails. Like, how come we're the only ones being transparent, Dave? Like, my father, they question it.
Apology? You ever get a call? Somebody on the
not
media?
even a retraction on some of these. The other, Michael Cohen was there when Donald Trump Jr. said, like, no, his lawyer pulled that one. His lawyer pulled it back because they got it wrong. And they're the guys leaking it. Like, it's so asinine. Like, and then they question about it. Now, there was no questioning about him then literally perjuring himself. I think it was 8 or 9 times. Like, because I'm live tweeting, I'm like, nope, didn't happen. Check XYZ. I mean, Jim Jordan, some of those called it out. They sent the thing back to the DOJ, be like, hey, what about this? Nothing. We're not playing the same game, and that's the problem. I mean, there are some Republicans that are doing it. There's some that are learning from Trump, because Trump has taught conservatives, hey, you can fight back. You don't just have to lose because they want you to. You don't just have to give up because they're going to write a bad story about you. But the problem is that mentality is still there. It's like, oh, okay, well, we're going to leave this again. Like, they would never give us that same benefit of the doubt. I say, hey, we can all play t-ball or we can all play hardball, but we got to be playing the same game, and we're not.
Do you ever fear that, or does your dad ever fear that game? So I agree with you on the premise of that. Like, we had to break this thing so that we can start resetting the system in a sensible way. But the game of sort of constant destruction, one way or another, that's dangerous. Ultimately,
it is. By the way, I'd love to break that game, but they're not going to do it. They have to work with us a little bit on that. The perfect example, the USMCA, the renegotiation of NAFTA. Everyone said it couldn't be done. It was the worst trade deal in the history of trade deals. I think everyone will admit that. My father, against all odds, renegotiated with Mexico and Canada this great trade that would bring over 100,000 jobs back to this country, manufacturing jobs where we need it. It's been sitting on Nancy's desk for 9 months. This will pass with flying colors. She won't even bring it to the vote because although it would be good for Americans, it would give Trump another win. Okay, he's already got the economic wins. But it would give him another win, and we can't do that. It would pass, Dave. You could do this bill in 30 seconds because there's probably not a Democrat that would vote against this thing. Okay, it would pass with flying colors. But you know what? By giving Trump a win, it would be better for them to keep more jobs out of the country, to do that. So they can resist.
But is that the irony?
You need a little bit. How about working on an infrastructure plan that would do the same, and it's well needed? How about all those that? How come there was no outrage that Trump, was the guy that got prison reform done? Like, where was Obama? They have no problem letting Joe Biden running around. Like, his primary campaign thing is like, government has failed you. I'm like. No shit, Joe. Like, hey, I'm with you on this one, but if I've been in the Senate for 30 years and in big government for 50, legit, not like hyperbole, for actually 50 years, dude, maybe you're part of the problem. That is the game that is being played right now. It's a shame. Again, Trump is probably the only guy that can do that, but you need a little bit of give from the other side. Hey, I think if anyone knows him, he's actually, a pragmatist. He'll work. Hey, prison reform ain't exactly a conservative, talking point, right? You know what it is, Dave? It was the right thing to do. It's not going to win him voters in his base. He probably won't even get much credit from the people who are going to benefit much from it because, the communities where they live, their general sentiment is to Democrat. But it was the right thing to do, so he did it anyway. I'd love to see some of that sentiment from the other side. That doesn't exist there. Certainly not today, and certainly not with Trump.
I hear you, man. I believe me. I've been trying to clean up what was my side. I can't honestly say it's my side anymore, but I've been
seen
trying.
That there's probably no one quite so tolerant as someone out there preaching tolerance.
So you mentioned sort of what's happening with some of the minority communities before. What do you make of what's going on right now with the black community? Because I do sense that through Candace and through Kanye West now. And what was it that your dad did just this week? Was it the Black Leadership Summit, or there was another one of these?
I haven't been following. I've been running around on the book.
Right,
but he's doing. He's bringing, people to the White House. He's given them a platform. He did things that were unprecedented, for a lot of the minority communities. You have all-time low African American unemployment, all-time low Hispanic unemployment, all-time low female, all-time high business startups, African American community, Hispanic community, female. If Obama did this, everyone we like give him a credit. Like the problem is, I do think that people get it. I do think that people see it, but man, they are like even so many of the Trump. They're like, well, we get it, we see it, but we can't say anything about it because we'll get destroyed. I mean, getting the information down to the people is hard because the DNC controls the churches, they control the community leaders, they control all of this thing. They've had a stranglehold on that. So even if it's happening, getting the information down to the voter is hard because it's going through so many levels of nonsense and, this didn't happen and you got so much outrage where they're still pushing that. But I do think, that American, the American voter, the regular guy, I give him so much more credit. Whether that's a Trump supporter, whether it's the minority community, I give him so much more credit. I mean, we saw it on, the example I love to use is, back in June, we launched the 2020 campaign in Orlando, in Florida. And I remember it was awesome. Like 47,000 people, something showed up for an arena that holds 25. They stood out in the rain for 2 days. Thunderstorms. I go, how many people are going to still be here after the thunderstorm? I was a little worried. Not one person left, Dave. It was awesome. I got to introduce the VP, who introduced the president. Like it was this big lie. It was right after the Mueller hoax was exposed, and it was like, Robert Mueller testimony. It was like, Mr. Mueller, I'm tweeting like, have you actually read the Mueller report? Like, no clue what's going on. I mean, they just used him because he was above reproach. He was a former decorated Marine, and he was the leader of the FBI, so Trump can't attack him.
It's not my purview.
It's not my purview. That was his line. Fusion GPS, like the genesis of it all. You spent $40 million in 3 years, and you have no idea what it is. Like, you realize like he was just a pawn, right?
Yeah.
You magically selected 19 like leftist donors to be the objective arbiters of this thing, and like, come on. But we're there. And it was this incredible rally. It was so warm. It was just insane. It was awesome. And I get back out, and 20 minutes later, I'm watching TV. Did you see those people? Ugh, they're out there in their flip-flops. That must be their formal attire. Ha, 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 ha. It was disgusting, man. And you saw the level of disdain, the level of hatred that, the liberal elite and the media, which, largely one and the same for the most part, has for like just hardworking people who, they think it's racist for those people, to want to live their American dream. They are terrible people, Dave, for wanting their tax dollars to be spent on them, maybe their children, again, rather than, some country that hates your freedom, values your religion, every aspect about you, like what civilization would never take care of their people first? I'm all for helping the world. Frankly, no country does more from a charity perspective than the United States of America. But like, maybe we take care of our own problems. Like, you're not, one of the ists, a misogynist, a terrorist, a racist, whatever it is, for, maybe saying, why don't we take care of our veterans, before some guy that can't stand us? Why don't we take care of our education system when we're number 28 in the world behind a long list of third world countries that are crushing us and we're spending 10x per capita? Like, why don't we fix those problems first with our tech? Like, you're not a bad person for wanting that. And when I saw that disdain, it's just like, that's some of the stuff that triggers me. I too am not above being triggered, even if I wrote the book about it. Like, it's that nonsense that you're just like, how do you get through that filter? If 93% of the media about Trump is negative despite unprecedented success, like there's literally not an economic metric where we are not better off today than we were under Obama, but you don't hear about it. The Democrat debates, how do we take Trump's Twitter away? Like, why don't we address China? Like, they literally didn't talk about China. Joe Biden says it's not a problem. Now, I believe him because his son's on the payroll for $1.5 billion. Like, I get it, but like, the others don't believe it's a problem either.
So
are we out of our minds?
So with all that in mind, and talking about the filter, because you're talking about the way the mainstream media operates, and then the filter, we're doing this on YouTube. I know you've talked a lot about tech censorship. I don't know if we're still on air. I may have to say the guy's name at the end. I've been debating it this whole time because it seems like if we don't say it, in a way, I'm not going to ask you to say it, but it sort of seems like if we don't, then it's doing the reverse of what you're saying there, right?
I don't like to cave to anything. Again, if that was my demeanor, I wouldn't. But there are times where you're like,
no, I get you.
It's a catch-22. You don't even want to go there because you don't want to give that person the platform because you know what the media will do and manipulate it, So, I talk a lot about tech censorship in the book because, I've been calling it out. I mean, we've had this discussion 3 years ago, not even on air, just been like, what do you do about this? I use the example I use in the book, although there's numerous, was, I got taken down off of Instagram for a post I did that was hate speech. When I was just like, I was one of the first sort of blue checkmark guys to be able to be like, guys, like, I get like that you're running with this Jussie Smollett thing, like, and if it happened, fry these guys. Like, there's no fucking place for that anywhere in this country. Like, not even a little bit.
Yeah.
But like, when it's on, within 30 seconds, it's on every mainstream talk show. Oh my God, this obviously happened. I go, guys, has anyone like asked the question, like, do you really think like a really rich actor in Chicago on the coldest night of the year is going out at 2 a.m. to satisfy his craving for Subway? I don't know. Like, it seems a bit odd. Like, do you really think that two, white supremacists walking around downtown Chicago again in MAGA hats with a bucket of bleach and a noose made of twine, like, you think they're really roaming the streets of downtown? You think they'd live for more than 15 to 20 seconds without getting shot? You really think they magically thought that this guy would be going out at that same time? They really had a premonition here. I'm like, has anyone like asked this question of like, it just sounds a little bit too obvious. Like, Jussie may be a good actor, but he ain't a good writer.
Yeah.
Like, it sounds...
It's not a great actor either.
Not a great actor. Well, by the way, do you really think that like these white supremacists were watching Empire? Like,
right.
I don't know. Like, if you're a white supremacist watching Empire, I'm like, I don't know. It doesn't seem like it really caters to that audience. Like, you really know who this guy is? So I asked the question. I got taken down for hate speech and this and that and the other, and YouTube. I put it right back up. Be like, am I not allowed to ask a question anymore? And it was interesting because I check my DMs, not the people I follow, but like, and I'll just scroll through and see what people are saying. And the amount of people, Dave, that took time, and I've done this a couple times when I've called them out or been, deplatform where I see, I had 57 million impressions this week, 0 new followers. I'm like, hey, Instagram, like, what's going on here? Twitter, like, what are you doing?
And it sucks because
then the next day it's like back up to normal,
right?
Yeah, you feel it, but like someone has to call them out. Again, I'm that guy that's willing to do it. Hey, I'm the son of the president. We run a multi-billion-dollar business. Like, I got a lot to lose if I get this wrong. But like, someone has to have the balls to actually be like, I just want to ask the question, like. And like the amount of people though, Dave, that reached out to me, I mean, they're writing paragraphs to my DMs. Like, I realize like this is a 1 in a billion chance that you're even going to see this thing, but they're taking paragraphs. Here's a photo. They're taking video of their phones, DMing it to me, like, here's me trying to like your tweet. And I don't mean like some political outrage tweet or an Instagram post. They're like, here's the heart, lights up, gone. Here's the heart. Kimberly, my girlfriend, like, she's like, I've had to follow you 4 times this week. I'm like, was I that bad last night? Like, did you unfollow me? Like, like I'm like, she get a little spicy. Like, did you unfollow me because you're mad? Like, she's like, no. Like, but they're reaching out and saying, I've been locked out of my account for 24 hours for liking a post, which was, your dad's post of him with his grandchildren. Not even the political stuff. And you see it, and it's like one after the thousands and thousands. So I'm saying,
all right. So going on the assumption that everyone watching this believes this, right? Like the Google leaker basically said that my channel was one of the ones being targeted. So I hear you, right? So then I think a lot of people, conservatives, are saying, then why doesn't the government get involved? I have my own thoughts on it.
I think they have to. I mean, these monopolies, again.
But is the risk
the problem is this: the conservative side has always done the free market. It's free market. I go, no, it's not. Because what they don't talk about is that those same platforms get so much protections from the government, in terms of there's some of the hate speech. They basically get an insurance policy from the government that. So once you're getting that policy, once you're getting those benefits from the government, you can no longer say, well, I'll listen to you, but no, not you. And so they're doing it. And the reality is, I think until I started getting vocal and calling some of these guys, now there are guys doing it. I mean, Kevin McCarthy's calling it out in the House. Josh Hawley's doing a good job calling it out in the Senate. But the reality is, honestly, most conservatives didn't even realize that this is an issue. And as I travel the country and talk to guys in the base, it's probably like a top 3 issue for them. Because they're saying, dude, if they can do it, I mean, I used the example last. If they can do it to Donald Trump Jr. with millions of followers, if they can do it to the President of the United States, I mean, you saw the example I used last week. I was like, Donald Trump Jr. searching my handle in Instagram, Donald J. Trump Jr., pretty specific, 2 million followers, and I share the name of the president. Him and I did not show up in the first 6 pages of the scroll.
So it's just fake accounts,
I
basically.
get Don Trump QPX _7642 with 1 follower and 2 posts. shows up in page one, and the
that
president.
Guy's funny though. He's funny.
He's
Some
pretty
good
good.
memes.
He's pretty good. He's going to be the next general in the meme wars.
Yeah.
And it shows you. So those guys are finally starting to get it, but it wasn't even on their radar. So like, it's my job and your job to be vocal about it, to call out that hypocrisy.
But are you worried, though, that then when you see these guys, all the progressives go after Zuckerberg, let's say, and I'm no great fan of Zuckerberg, but basically what I watched in that hearing a couple weeks ago was AOC and Presley and the rest of them, they were basically saying, we can't control speech because it's against the First Amendment, so we're going to force you to do it.
Well, but it's not just Zuckerberg.
Isn't that the fear, though? That, okay,
100%. But and it's not just Zuckerberg. The problem is this: the pervasive mentality over in Silicon Valley. So he may have 20,000 people that all agree with AOC. And they're the ones actually sitting there probably, he may not even know what the hell is going on, because you have an army of people that all feel one way, that all believe, free speech for me but not for thee, that all will more than happily, tweak the algorithms. Like, I don't even know how much he knows, but you watch them, I mean, hey, like, he's not exactly right-wing, and they're canceling him for not being crazy enough to satisfy their goals. So the reality is we got to be out there, we got to call them out, and we got to hold them to task. We can't just say, okay, well, I don't want a mean tweet from AOC. Like, who cares?
But is the fear that then you give the power to the government, and now let's say your dad loses, and now congratulations, you've handed the power to Elizabeth Warren, who would be more than happy.
Well, and that's
to
the
shut
reality,
us all
and that's
down.
why so many things. I mean, that's why some of the gun control argument, like you see. Well, if someone believes red flag laws make sense, whether I agree with them or not, is almost irrelevant. You see within seconds, Ben Shapiro put up the thing. Well, if someone came to my door, I'd get it. I mean, he had a sarcastic thing about I'd bring a gun. And Eric Swalwell at Congress.
Yeah,
this is why we need it. He shouldn't be able to have. I'm like, Jesus Christ. Like, you take a pretty reasonable guy, not exactly an alt-right guy, and though he's been painted as a Nazi, even though he's, I guess, Orthodox Jewish, like, you're going to say that guy shouldn't be able to exercise his Second Amendment. Like, you can't trust the left because immediately they will weaponize these things. But there does need to be, a dialogue. There does need to be checks and balances, because you see that censorship, and you see, hey, Trump utilized social more effectively than any human being in history in 2016, and what they're doing. It's a dry run for 2020.
So
I'm not saying they're throwing him off the platform, but they're going to minimize his reach. They're going to, minimize who gets to see it, who gets to follow. Again, if I have people dozens a day saying, Don, I'm magically not following you, but I am following 7 left-wing media sites that I didn't ever try to follow, that I've never even looked at. They're just appearing in my feed, not as sponsored links, but I'm looking, I'm saying, well, I never followed them, but now I am. You can see it's a dry run to prevent them, to prevent him, to prevent the campaign, to prevent other conservatives, to be able to get their message to people who need it. Donald Trump played monkey in the middle with the media. He's like, I'm just going to right over your filter, right over your heads, and bring my message right to the people. And they're like, how can we limit that? We may not be able to limit it entirely, but how can we limit it?
So then how is this not going to happen? I hear you. I agree.
Well, again, listen, I'm going to keep being vocal about it. I'm going to keep holding Congress on both sides to task. If they're sitting on there floundering away, not actually, I'll call them out on it. Like I said, I'm not in this business right now in the long run. I don't care. Like, I'm just going to call out. Hey, I've done it to other conservatives. You've seen that. Like, hey, like, I see you on Hannity. You're complaining about XYZ, but like, I don't actually see you doing anything about it. There's one thing sort of pandering to a base.
Yeah.
There's one thing sort of talking to those people, but like, talk is talk, action is action, and they're two very different things. So you sort of make it seem like there's action here, but you're not doing shit. Like, I'll hold those guys to task even if they're theoretically on our side.
All right, I got one more for you because I know you got a busy day today and we're already over. But first off, I just want to quickly say, because I meant to say it at the beginning, that we did not discuss any of this beforehand, what we were going to do here. Your guys did not ask me, don't say this or talk about this or anything.
Honestly, I tried.
You literally walked in, you were like, let's roll. And I just think it's important to say.
I don't put preconditions on stuff like this. Again, there are people I definitely don't want to, give a platform to because, I know what the media will then do with that, so there's always a catch-22. But no, the reality is,
and now I'm going to prove
there's nothing off limits.
I'm going to prove it now. You got 1 minute. I mean, are you going to run? I mean, like at some point, does this all lead to you in 2024?
Right now, the reality is this: my only focus for the next year is getting my father reelected. My only. I mean, again, unlike Hunter Biden, I'm walking away from a lot of our business. We did that naturally, created an opening for me. I see what's going on. I'm the father of 5 young kids. I see the results. I want them to grow up in an America that we recognize. Okay, a lot of people have done that, man. I get that, like, Trump 2020, Trump 2024 too, man. And the book signings. I mean, I heard that 2,000 times yesterday. No exaggeration. And I honestly, there's no greater compliment from those people who believe that, who like, perhaps what I'm doing or saying. The reality is I have no aspirations, beyond 2020 right now. That doesn't mean that doesn't change. I'm certainly not going to rule it out. I do enjoy the game. I do enjoy the game. But I don't know that I'd like the day job right now. I got to know I want that aspect of it too. Now, it is fascinating. It is incredible to see like these people. And again, I'm probably much more comfortable, and you've seen that, in the Midwest, in like the Rust Belt, than I am in like the New York City rubber chicken dinner charity circuit BS. Like I don't do it because I am a real hunter. I am a competitive shooter. But it sounds crazy because again, I know where I'm from. I know who I am. I know I'm this yada 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 when they try to own me for that. But the reality is I have so many of those. That's where I choose to spend my time. That's where my real friends are. So I hear that a lot. But my biggest thing is making sure you get 4 more years, because I think you can really change the course of this craziness. And every day is yet another. I mean, I could write literally the addendum to this book today in the amount of time that since this went to print, the amount of bullshit that has happened. I'm like, Jesus Christ, I could write like 3 books.
Yeah.
So I do like it. I do enjoy it. I do love seeing the difference it makes.
You're doing the hand motion right now.
is that I got to do? I may have to do the Trump Cobra. Just I don't want to. I guess that was a little Clinton-esque. So I got to be careful with that. I do enjoy it. But again, my only focus right now is 2020. Whatever happens after that, there's plenty of time for that conversation. I would never rule it out. But again, I like the fight aspect of this game. I don't know that I'd like the day job. We'll see what happens, but it has been an awesome ride. It has been an awesome journey. It was awesome to be able to, put it in long form in the book, rather than just sort of, 280 characters or less, or the first half of that in 140 characters or less, because you can sort of get your thought out. However, that's manipulated in the press. We'll leave it up to the readers to decide, if I'm truly as terrible as everyone says I am. But that never really mattered to me, as we've discussed.
Good finish, and I'm pretty sure he just said he's running. It's at Donald J.
By the way, that's what they will run.
Twitter. That's what they're going to run.
One of the guys did that after my convention speech. They're like, "Oh my God, Donald Trump Jr.'s got to run!" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm not going to rule it out." They go, "He's running." I'm like, "Wait," because that's cancel culture. I mean, if in 2016 I say, yeah, I'm not going to do it, and in 15 years I change my mind.
What a flip-flopper.
You're a liar. You basically committed perjury. I mean, you're obviously, all this bullshit we've been hearing for the last couple. So I never want to rule it out, because I know it can and will come back to be used against you in the court of public opinion. So I'm never going to rule it out. But that was also definitely not the affirmative. Yes, it's obviously it's in the works. But we'll talk off the record. Just kidding.
At Donald J. Trump Jr. on Twitter. Thanks, man.
Thanks, man.